Welcome to the Igniting the CEO Within podcast, where we interview successful high-level professionals to discover lessons they've learned throughout their career that can help ignite that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge, and I'll be your host for the next 15 minutes or so. Our show is sponsored by Quade, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quade has developed Launchpad, which offers an opportunity for experienced executive coaches to become licensed circle directors. After completing the Launchpad program, you'll lead your own peer advisory circles, helping other CEOs and entrepreneurs excel in their professional and personal lives while providing a community of support, accountability, and challenge. If you'd like to learn more, go to quadecircle.com. I'm so excited about our episode today. I get to hang out with Megan Kane. She's the Executive Director of Rellia. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Your background is amazing, and I just can't wait to dive in. In your work, you get exposure to a bunch of different entrepreneurs and leaders. And if you had to take a look at some of the most successful ones, or maybe even the ones that you look at and know immediately are going to be successful in their launch, what are some traits that separate those people from those that may have some work to do to get there?
For most of my career, I worked with pretty experienced CEOs at the executive level. And now in my current role, I work a lot more with founders. So they're the first time in that CEO role, or in that
Mhm.
transition. And in both camps, I think I'm noticing it's the same kind of characteristics that mark a really successful CEO. And I'd say it maybe comes down to two unique characteristics. The first would be coachability. And by that, I mean more of the beginner mindset, that humility to be able to take advice and learn something new and be vulnerable enough to be bad at something in the early
Right.
stages. And then the other one would be consistency. I think there's pressure a lot of CEOs put on themselves to do everything perfectly or be the best or be the most aggressive, the most decisive. But the ones I see that are just showing up every day with the same amount of energy and, willing to be in it for the long haul every single day, those ones tend to outperform the ones that are always striving for the top of the top.
I love that. And I've asked that question a lot and I've gotten a lot of different answers. And I think the consistency one is not one that I get a lot of. And so I want to dive into that just a little bit more because first of all, I agree with you. I think you're right. The challenge, I think, especially in these new founders and people that are new to this thing, that's hard to do, right? Because you want to do everything immediately, and it's never fast enough. No matter how much success you're having, it's never fast enough in your mind. How do you help coach against that? How do you get them to level that out a little bit more and not have to get everything done tomorrow or yesterday?
You're so right. And I think with all CEOs, but especially with founders, there's this dichotomy all the time of you're both accomplishing more things than you ever thought possible every single day. And you're so proud of everything you've overcome and the work you've done up until now. And yet you're also slapped in the face every day with all of the failures, all the things you should be doing better that
Right.
you haven't done yet. The backlog of tasks is never ending. And it's constantly that tug in both directions. And I think it can be difficult for any CEO not to get too far pulled in any one direction. Either you're so proud of everything you've done, you think, oh, I can relax and, and hang back now, or you're just so focused on what still needs to be done that you can't enjoy the progress you've made. And so I think the consistency mindset helps people to sort of quiet that noise on either end and just show up today, focus on what you could do today, and keep doing that every single day. And that's the only way to sort of prioritize and not get so caught up in all of that emotion.
Yeah, you're dead on. I think the other challenge that occurs with folks that are driven that way too, and when they've thought of something, right? This idea has been percolating in their head for years, sometimes decades, right? And so they know it inside and out. And then the challenge starts to happen when you start bringing in other people to help carry out your vision. And obviously they don't have the years or decades of thought that's going into it. So there's almost an impatience from the founder piece too, right? Of, duh, why don't you get this, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's so hard to
ha-
translate everything that's going on in a founder's brain to other people as you're bringing on, especially when things are moving so quickly in the startup stages. There just isn't time to be able to distribute all that. It's one of the reasons I harp on, and I know nobody wants to hear it, but on documenting your processes early. It's such a pain to have to carve out the time to do that, but it makes such a difference. So I'm always trying to coach founders to prioritize that if they can.
Yeah. How do you get them to do that, right? To appreciate that foundational structure, to appreciate that sometimes you have to slow down to go faster because ultimately the founder can't do everything, right? Like for the company to scale to the places that they want to go, they can't do everything. Even though they know everything, they can't do it because it's going to hold back. And for the company to be successful, they've got to get themselves to the role that's most valuable to the company as soon as possible. But that means slowing down at the same time.
Well, I'm kind of spoiled because my background is in quality management originally. So, I worked in the health tech field. So, for a lot of medical devices, that quality system is required. But it also is so helpful for any kind of business to have that same structure of documentation. So, I got to see very early in my career the difference it would make to come into an organization that doesn't have well defined processes and what would it look like when I take the time to build that framework for their company, and then how much more smoothly operations run beyond that. So I have that background, that mindset with every company I work with now, where I can see sort of start to finish what that framework might look like in your documentation and what documentation works and what's just a waste of time. So I kind of have that already going in.
Yeah. What role does providing a community to these founders play in their success?
I think a lot has been said already about finding a community of peers. I think there's lots of versions of that out there. Um, Hopefully every founder can and find a community that feels like the right fit for them. There's so many different types of communities. So depending on what you're looking for and what sort of gels with your personality type and your availability, those exist. And so if you haven't found one yet, I really encourage CEOs of any level to find that community. But I think the underrated benefit of that too are the community members who are not necessarily founders, but they have experience that they're willing to share. So the kind of communities that bring in other types of experts as well, I think are really effective because you can learn so much from somebody with a really niche set of expertise, like by quality management, for example. But there's lots of other
Mhm.
examples where you maybe wouldn't know that unless you happen to have worked in that field for a long time. So the more you can expose yourself in a community setting rather than seeking out, consulting or advising hours that can be quite expensive. Those communities can be a treasure trove of information for you that you just couldn't find elsewhere.
And that's a lot of what you do at Relia, right? If I understand it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We try to create more of an open sharing model so that there's much more of a culture of giving information very freely and not the sort of exchange that you typically see in consulting circles. And I say that
Yeah.
as a consultant myself.
Right.
So
Right. Right. So, but how does that work? Like, again, like, especially when you're working with founders and especially in the tech industry, right? Where everything, I'm not coming from the tech industry, but seemingly everything, everybody wants to hold things so close to their vest. How do you encourage the people to allow themselves to share their experiences, to be vulnerable and ask for help and all those things that make that community successful?
From the founder side, I haven't come across a ton of resistance to being vulnerable. I think because founders are so aware of all of the things they have yet to learn, or at least the ones
Mhm.
that seek out these types of communities perhaps are more open about that. The advisor side, so the experts, the operators, the people who've done this for many years, who are then sharing their knowledge with the founders, I do find there's a specific subset of person that does really well in that role. So there are some people I think that are just wired to help others and to give. And to me, those people, I think they end up receiving 10 times more than what they give, is what I
Mhm.
see. But when you find those kind of people that feel rewarded by sharing, it's just magic what happens between those two. It's so amazing. I'm so lucky that that's my job to get to see that in action every day.
Right, right. Yeah, that abundance mentality will carry you in so many ways. I agree. I agree. So, what does kind of the Relia community look like as you recruit people in? What does it look like? What's a relationship with Relia look like?
Sure. So there's a couple of different partnership opportunities. So we have the founders themselves, of course, can join the community. Oh, excuse me. They have access to all of the network that we have available for them, which includes the advisors that we bring in, the investors that are specific to the health tech field, clinicians as well who are interested in being involved in innovation. And then likewise, those roles can also join too. So the advisors, if they're looking for, being connected in the latest and greatest in tech, see what's happening in the industry before it actually hits the market. If they find it really rewarding to share their knowledge, if they want to network with other mentors and advisors and get to know people in a new way as well. So there's lots of exciting ways to engage with the community.
Yeah, that's cool. How did the idea for Relia come about?
It came out by accident. I never set out to be an entrepreneur myself or to start a business. I was very happy working in my role.
Uh,
But I started to join other organizations as that mentor role myself. So I started to find that it was really interesting and engaging at that stage in my career to be able to share some of my knowledge. So I started to support startups and offer what I could in, bits of volunteering here and there, and just fell in love with the whole process. And I was surprised to find just how eager founders are for that type of advice. I think when you worked in corporate for a while, you just sort of assume that your role is confined to your specific company or your specific industry, and you don't really know just how many people would benefit from your expertise. And only in becoming part of that innovation ecosystem did I really see just how needed that was. And so I sort of caught the bug and found it really interesting. And then when a founder would get stuck on a problem and couldn't find an advisor with that specialty, I knew a lot of those people from my career in corporate for many years. So I started to reach out to my network and say, hey, would you be willing to meet with this founder and help answer some of their questions? And typically the answer was yes. And then if I didn't know somebody with that expertise, I started looking for those folks and starting to network to be able to find more. And it sort of grew organically from there. And now we have this amazing community of people who all are willing to share their time and their expertise. So it's grown quite quickly.
that's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations. It okay. If we start to wrap this up, and you start to think about somebody has an idea in their head, and they're thinking about launching something, a new product, a new service, whatever that is. What's the first piece of advice that you give to them?
That's a great question. I typically work with people who are a little bit past that early idea stage, so I don't often get this question. But I think if I had to think about what advice, it would be to try to zoom out and zoom in very frequently. So what I mean by that is, it can be tempting to sit in one one Zoom level at a time, to either be right in the details and you're focusing on where you are today only, and you're executing on that all the time every day, or you're thinking such big picture, large in scale, and you know global strategy before you've even launched the initial product. That's kind of where you tend to sit. I think at the really earliest stages, the more you can oscillate between the two, and even to schedule that into your calendar, if for you, Monday is your Zoom in day, Friday is your Zoom out day, whatever that looks like for you. But making sure that you're checking in with yourself to look at both perspectives frequently. I think at the earliest stages, that's super, super important because you always have to be considering both to be able to get past those first early milestones.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for sharing all that. Hey, do me a favor. Would you share with our audience how they can get a hold of you, and then what does a typical engagement with Relia look like?
Sure, absolutely. So our website is Rellia Health, RELLIA.com. And you can apply there either as a founder or a mentor. You can also reach out to us there if you're interested in investment opportunities or as a clinician, or as an industry partner. So we also partner with lots of resources to be able to provide things like contract manufacturing or legal services or consulting services at a lower rate to our founders. So if you're interested in that kind of partnership, that's also great too. So all of that can be done through our website. The typical engagement is really we try to meet people wherever they're at. So We really focus on listening to what our founders need and then only giving them what they need and not wasting their time or their efforts with anything else. So if you're a founder or if you're in the ecosystem at all, reach out to us. Let us know what you're looking for. Let us know what you haven't been able to find yet. And then we'll do whatever we can to make that possible.
That's awesome. Great. Megan, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a blast.
Oh, my pleasure. It's so fun.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We've done it again. We found another amazing leader and another great resource for you as you continue down that path to your first or future CEO seat. As we wrap up, I want to remind you that Igniting the CEO Within is sponsored by Quade, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quade has created Launchpad, which provides an opportunity for experienced executive coaches to become licensed circle directors and significantly impact the lives of CEOs and entrepreneurs. To find out more, visit quadecircle.com. Until next time, keep igniting that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge. Thanks for listening.